Hi everyone. So this video is well overdue. I was meant to post at least a week after my first video with regard to my diagnosis, my journey, how everything went, and life just got in the way. Now we're on holiday and actually I'm having a bad day today. I'm very symptomatic, mainly because we've come away and we're just exhausted. I think it's just tiredness from the last year or so, catching up. It's the first holiday we've been on, like many people, since lockdown. So we've not been away since before that. The beds unfortunately are not great where we're staying, but you know, other than that, you know, everything's fine. Managed to get a bit of a nap today, but unfortunately, like many people who have POTS, if I don't sleep, I become very symptomatic, and it happens very rarely. Also, I think I've had some kind of allergic reaction, which hardly ever happens, but my eyelids have become all puffy. So I've been on Piriton, which hasn't helped because it's added to my tiredness. But the main thing that I wanted to discuss today was what happened on my journey with regards to getting diagnosed. I'll try and keep it short and sweet, but basically the reason I wanted to get this out there is I know a lot of people that eventually get diagnosed with POTS go on a long journey beforehand. It took me, I think it took 2.5 years for me to get a diagnosis. Up until that point, nobody knew what was wrong with me. My symptoms started shortly after I had my second son. Had a cesarean, everything went well. I wasn't unwell. There was nothing that I could see that triggered the POTS to start. I know that sometimes they say after an illness people can become symptomatic. For me, that wasn't the case. Nothing that I've thought of in the past triggered the symptoms that I started to get. But after my son was born, I started to feel very faint. Couldn't walk for long distances. I had a job at the time which was probably the worst job I could have had because I was constantly on my feet, inspecting properties, and the longer I was on my feet and stood up, the more faint I felt. And it got to the stage where it was so bad that I couldn't even walk to the end of the street and drop my kids to school without feeling as I was going to black out. I was having palpitations, breathlessness. I couldn't hold a conversation without gasping for air, you know, like that. It was awful, and nobody knew what was wrong with me, so went to the doctors. She actually asked me if I'd experienced palpitations, and at the time I hadn't given it any thought. And then I said, well, actually, yeah. And she sort of told me off and said, well, why did you not think to tell us? And I said, well, I don't really think about it. It happens. It was more noticeable at night at rest, and it felt like my heart was going to jump out my chest, and it was skipping beats, and not very nice. So she sent me off for various tests, one of many that I've had, and that involved wearing a heart monitor. I think they call it EKG in America. It's ECG here. It's a monitor that you wear, and it was for a week, and it just monitors your heart rate and what's going on with it during that time. Anyway, I had this monitor, and that prompted them to do further tests. And that was the first scary thing that happened, because when they did further tests, they said to me that they thought I had what was called Brugada syndrome, which is also called sudden death syndrome. So basically I ended up being told that I might die in my sleep, which was horrific, because every night when I kissed my kids goodnight, I would end up in tears because I thought I wasn't going to wake up to see them the next day. So that was horrendous, and it was a what if, but it's human nature to think the worst, to Google things, and you know, all of these things. The worst thing you do, don't ever go on Google. You know, you're convinced that you're just going to die or something dramatic's going to happen. Anyway, I had various hospital stays. I'd like to also note that I am hypermobile. And during my pregnancies, I did have pelvic girdle issues, so I had to wear a brace. So this is why I also have since found out that I've got Ehlers-Danlos hypermobility type, which they tend to not really diagnose anymore. They just say that you're hypermobile. But with a few other medical things that are going on, it became quite clear to me that the two are quite closely linked. And I know that a lot of people who have POTS also have EDS. So anyway, I was in and out of hospital, things kept happening, I kept feeling ill, nobody knew what was wrong. Then I blacked out at home when I was alone with my then, I want to say he was about 18 months to 2 years old, so like I say, it's been going on for quite a while. And I completely blacked out and collapsed in his bedroom. Luckily, it was short-lived. I didn't bang my head or hurt myself, and I came to, and my little toddler at the time knew what it meant when I asked him to go and get my phone, and I rang my partner and he came straight home, and then I went to the hospital. I was admitted for a week. I was told that I might need a pacemaker. Basically, no one knew what was wrong with me, and I then had a heart monitor on again to monitor my progress while I was in the high dependency unit, just so I could move around and go to the toilet and I wasn't just constantly plugged into machines. And literally I'd go for a wee and I'd come back to my bed and there'd be like 5 nurses standing around my bed looking panic stricken. I was like, what's wrong? And they said, well, your heart rate, it's gone from like 48 to like 148. We thought something was happening to you. I said, no, that's what happens when I stand up and I go to the toilet. So the difference in my heart rate from resting to standing was dramatic. So this prompted them to eventually discharge me because they didn't see that anything was, they couldn't see a clinical reason for keeping me in, even though they still didn't know what was wrong with me. So I went home, told to take fluids, etc, etc. I by then had worked out that adding salt to my food and drinking more water helped, so I was doing that anyway, and elevating my feet when I felt faint, because I thought that's common sense. When you feel faint, you know, sort of being rested and your feet up tends to help. So those were things that I was trying to do. But it was just so depressing because I couldn't play with my kids. I couldn't be up on my feet for long. I couldn't go out for long walks. It was just horrendous. It was taking over my life and I didn't know what was wrong with me. Anyway, eventually on this long road, I got referred to Dr. Gall, who is a specialist in POTS at King's College Hospital in London. And they sent me to him after I had also had a tilt table test. I forgot to mention that. And a tilt table test is when they monitor your heart from being laid down to standing. They strap you in a table and they will monitor the progress and see what happens and the difference in your heart rate from being flat to standing up. And obviously with all those results combined and the various heart monitors I'd had, etc., Dr. Gall saw me and literally within 2 minutes of sitting in the chair, he said, I believe you have POTS syndrome. Sent me off to do a variety of other things, and eventually I got the confirmation in the post that, you know, I had postural orthostatic tachycardia syndrome. It's a mouthful, hence why it's abbreviated to POTS. And that's when the various medication trials started. I had things to lower my, to increase my blood pressure, to lower my heart rate. They tried all different types of cocktails until they found a medication that helped me. I ended up on Midodrine, which I may have pronounced that incorrectly, but it was to increase my blood pressure because my resting blood pressure is extremely low and my resting heart rate is also very low. It's actually lower now than when I first got diagnosed because I now do a lot of exercise and activity to help with my symptoms. So eventually they found this Midodrine, which did help my symptoms. The only side effect that I didn't like, and I still don't like if I have to take it, is it felt like I had ants crawling over my scalp, which was horrendous, and it would last for about an hour after taking the tablet. I am pleased to say I don't medicate anymore. I do still have them, and Dr. Gall has basically said to me after monitoring my progress that he will leave it to me and that I will always have access to that medication, but to only take it when I need it, because I've obviously worked out when I do and when I don't. The way that I help myself recover, and this is very important for me to add, is that I did a lot of research, and Dr. Gall also asked me to look up the Levine protocol, which is basically when you start doing exercises, either sitting or laying down, and basically strengthening your heart in order for your heart to get used to the strain that it can be under when you have a condition like POTS. And also because a lot of us have blood pooling in the legs, so when we stand up, you know, our heart rate can't cope, our blood is pooling in the lower part of our body, which means it can't circulate to the top end of our body, and that leads to us feeling faint. So the Levine protocol really helped me, and I started off in the gym on the recumbent bicycles, doing things like that just to increase my heart rate. It was a very, very slow progression for me in terms of getting better in the gym and being able to stand for longer. But I am pleased to say I was lucky in the fact that I am very stubborn and I kept it up. I looked at different things that would help in my diet, you know, increase salt, increase fluid. Fluid is so important. I will drink at least 3 litres of water a day now without fail. All those things combined helped. And then with regards to the joint pain I was getting because of my hypermobility, I was referred to a rheumatologist who encouraged me to start strength training. So now I train 5 times a week. I'm on holiday at the moment, so I'm having a rest, especially on days like this where I've just been chilling out. But I'm having a rest at the moment. But generally I train 5 times a week, and that is predominantly with strength training. And I obviously add the cardio to keep my heart where it should be and to prevent me from being symptomatic. Sorry, just had to briefly stop the video, but basically just wanted to hop back on and just say if there's anything that you would like to know further about my journey, or if you have any specific questions about what I've mentioned in this video, please like and subscribe. I'm happy to respond to all comments. The more people I can help, the better to me. I found that there was not a lot of information out there for people that have what I have, and it was a long and scary journey. You know, I still get bad days. Even if I don't take medication anymore, I still get bad days, today being one of them. So if you have any questions, I would love to hear them. Until next time, take care, bye.